My name is Lacey Strete, and I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. Right now, I am employed at Microsoft, and I work in our Azure division, and I focus on go-to-market activities. I enjoy helping others reach their goals and celebrate their accomplishments. I've been very, very fortunate that a number of folks in my life have paid it forward for me, and as part of giving back appreciation for those that have helped me along my career path and not knowing what decisions to make, which ones were the right ones, which ones were the wrong ones, that I've relied on my community around me to help me craft my own path. And from those lessons, it's partially giving back to those in appreciation, but it's also helping to pay forward those that may not have been as fortunate as I have to have the experienced mentorship and coaching and guidance and access inside of my community that I didn't have a true appreciation for until it came with wisdom and age and experience that you're able to sit back and reflect what could have changed or what wouldn't have been if those folks weren't so influential in my own life. And specifically, with Blacks at Microsoft and the connections with Blacks in Technology and Blacks in Technology Foundation, there are a number of tight community partnerships with technology firms that BIT has been able to cultivate, to be able to show up, to be able to share different experiences that may not be readily available information to different folks in the community. And so by virtue of folks who I had worked with that had already been part of BIT or part of some of the ERG communities, it was able to open up my eyes to some different ways that I could redeploy my own time to be able to act on a day-to-day basis with folks that may need something that I have to offer. One of the places that I was really, really lucky with coaches, mentors, teachers, friend and neighbor and family support was helping me to break down my goals small enough to meet something for the long term. So if I had my sights set on something, there were some natural tendencies that I had, whether it just be from competition or having something to prove or just wanting to achieve. I'm too much of a perfectionist. But one of the things that I didn't have a full appreciation for was the gift to be able to break down a goal into very small, meaningful chunks that you can actually stop and celebrate. And I had some folks around me highlight that that was something that I did naturally, and that with the right support network, you can truly flourish. But how do you build the support network? If you can break down your goals small enough, get incremental achievement, it feeds the physiology of the human body, the brain. The dopamine hits that help you keep going, the same way that if you're trying to go out and become a marathon runner, you can't go and run tens or 50 or hundreds of miles in a week without working your way there. And so that aspect of breaking things down into small, meaningful chunks and being able to practice those things, not 1,000, but 1 or 2 at a time, to be able to get good at it. I found out later that it was a huge component of sports psychology, or it was a huge aspect of meeting goals, and those were things that I just already did naturally and had been doing with my team for years, whether that was athletic teams or whether it was at school or as I worked my way into the workforce, of being able to help us go do something and do it with meaning and clear out the noise. That's something that I offer to mentees, and each time that we start to break down their goals smaller, it's awesome to see them come back with smiles and high fives and just glowing with the fact that they met an achievement and it was a stepping stone toward their major goal. And even being there for them as a safety net if something didn't go their way. There's an underappreciation, I think, for a number of folks that failure's okay, and you always learn something, whether you get the win or you consider it a failure, to be able to be there as the support to say, no, you still learned something, you still got there, you still acted, you still met your goal. Maybe it didn't look perfect, but you still got there, and to be able to give the high fives. I think that that's something that I've been very fortunate, either through natural skill set or that community support, but that's something that has been glowing through in the mentor-mentee relationships that I've had over the years. So another gift that Microsoft has given to me is the access to employee resource groups, and that the ERGs in our business allow us to get close to different populations, different groups, different communities, different lived experiences that I couldn't get in an everyday aspect. It's groups that come together and allow different communities to educate those of us that have come from different backgrounds or different communities or different nationalities, and we can come together and get closer to it. We are able to see experiences that we may not see every day, or that I may not see in my experiences here in Cincinnati, Ohio, in my office each day. And so with access to these employee resource groups, it's also been able to allow us to build our communities differently, to be able to show up for one another, to be able to get closer, get that proximity, and be able to internalize different help that either people are asking for, or to become more intelligent about the true help that's needed in some of the communities. I would say that there are a lot of similarities that can be drawn between marginalized groups, but each person's lived experience is always different, right? You can never be 100% relating to one particular individual, but there are a lot of similarities to draw. And when it came to being a woman in tech, I didn't understand the ways that I was being marginalized until men around me were helping me understand when it was happening. A lot of the ways that we were taught growing up to push things aside, ignore them, pretend like things weren't happening, that was something that I didn't realize until it came with age and wisdom and sponsorship and allyship for me personally, as to where I was even being a bad ally to people who looked and sounded like me or had similar backgrounds to me, that I wasn't even showing up for a population that I related to day in and day out, let alone not understanding the lived experiences of everybody every day. And so the way that most of those challenges had showed up was starting within the immediate circle. A lot of times I was the admin assistant. Even if I was the highest ranking person in the room, I was the same person that was asked to get the coffee when I had an assistant there with me. And that they had everything organized and they were great at their job, but because it was a guy, that they had assumed that I was the assistant and that the guy was the one who was there to have the discussion, or it showed up as being cut off frequently, and that I didn't have the credibility in the room, even though I was the most highly accredited person in the room, or that I had the most certifications, that I had the most experience. Even for my silver-haired friends that were my own sponsors or mentors, I had more experience in that space. And as those difficulties have presented themselves, it has built up a little bit of grit. I have to say that I was a little bit disappointed when it was finally pointed out to me that it was happening, that I was like, oh man, it is happening. Man, this sucks. I wish I wouldn't have known that this was happening to me. But then it opened my eyes, and it was really, really important that it was pointed out to me, though, as painful as it was, changing from blissful ignorance into eye-opening experiences. It also helped me understand where it allowed me to show up better for people in the room as well, because it was embarrassing for people who I had worked with every single day. They didn't know how to react in these situations, and I was able to explain that I'm not blaming them for not speaking up when they asked me to get the coffee, and my buddy over here was the one who was responsible for doing it. So it opened doors for more authentic, more realistic conversations that the person didn't have to approach themselves, but they were so relieved when I actually called it out. In other cases, it helped me to ask for something that I needed. And so if there were people who were perceived as higher ranking to me in the room, we started to come up with strategies so that I was able to show up better for customers. I was able to show up better for my bosses. And it helped me feel a little bit more empowered to ask for certain things that I need when I was starting to recognize that these things were happening. And by breaking down some of those conversation barriers, it allowed them to show up better for me, or to coach me in things that they had experienced before, but I felt empowered to have those conversations. In other cases, when it didn't happen like that, not all conversations were like that. I had a number of customers who were incredibly inappropriate for me being the only female in the room, and they said incredibly inappropriate parts of the conversation with sexual innuendo or degrading types of vernacular that you would never use in a workplace, let alone in a professional environment. that you were expecting to deliver services in a professional way with some of these clients, but it allowed me to then start to recognize it more to make sure that it didn't happen again, where I would be able to have a brave conversation and create that space with people that I had trusted to point out that it was actually happening and be able to make sure that it better aligned with some of the values going forward. So giving advice to my younger self, I would probably go back to some of the experiences in transition from college into the workforce. As that transition period had occurred, I think that the self-exploration and really maximizing the opportunities to explore other cultures, to explore others' experiences, to be able to get closer. I think that there was a lot of shame that I had about different ways that I grew up or different experiences I didn't have, that I always had something to prove. And to be able to truly value oneself, to feel comfortable in your own skin, it comes with time, it comes with experience. But I also think that to be well-rounded, that there would have been less assumptions, there would have been a little bit of a softer feel and a less aggressive type of prove it, super competitive type of feel that would have helped me adapt early on. I think that the other piece of advice that I wish I had even when I was 5 years old was that humans act from emotion in most cases and not from logic. So I spent my entire life acting from logic and trying to present facts and overloading people with factual information that no one cares about, and that to fully understand another person's position is never going to happen, but to understand that humans are acting from emotion most of the time, or from a place of lacking education, or if lack of experience or ignorance or emotion all pair together, it can get very dangerous. And those types of experiences, I think, are something that everybody has come up against, and that creates a great deal of fear and a great deal of feelings of inadequacy. And I think that getting out in the community more, really getting close to things, not in a fearful way, but in a more curious way, and to be able to understand those acts of emotion could have helped me start showing up better for people all along, my friends, my family, people that I'm meeting for the first time. And I think that's what's helped me over time become more effective, but I could have done it so much earlier.